Hello everyone, this is a practice tutorial on Python classes. Let's just remind what a class is. It's just a way to store information and methods that you can reuse, replicate, and organize. Okay, so the simplest way to define a class is by typing class, then the name of the class, open close parameter, the 2 points, which I don't remember the name anymore, and anything inside. Okay, this is a class. We can create an instance of the class. Let's say Pedro instance equals Pedro class, open close, sorry. Now we can print this instance. Let's look at this instance, what it is. It's just a place in the memory, so it's just referring to the object, okay, and the memory location. We can create more than one instance. We can create Pedro instance 2 equals Pedro class. Let's print both. So now look, notice that they are in different places of the memory. Okay, these two classes, these two objects, they are independent from each other. Although they are the same class, they are defined from the same class, they are different objects. So everything I do with Pedro instance does not affect Pedro instance 2 and vice versa. Okay, this class is not doing anything interesting, so let's change that. Let's give this class parameters that we can store and work with. So to do that, the usual way is to use this very specific, very special function init that allows me to assign my parameters, for example, my Pedro parameter 1 and my Pedro parameter 2. It allows me to assign this, to define these parameters, declare these parameters outside of the function, outside of the class, when I declare the class, when I create an instance of it. So in this case, I can do Pedro P1 equals 2 and Pedro P2 equals 3. Obviously, I have to do that to all my instances. All instances will require that. Let me see if there's an error here. Pedro P1 equals 2, Pedro P2 expected, and sure, yes. So here is a function I have to pass, okay? To do anything, I have to pass here. Otherwise, Python thinks that this line here should belong to the function, and then in this case I should ident it. That's not the case, so I write a pass here. It's not doing anything. All right, so now this init function allows me to define the arguments from the outside of the class when I define the class, like this, okay? So now let's internalize these parameters. To internalize the parameters, the usual way is self.Pedro P1. So use the same name, but actually these two things are different. So this is a variable, Pedro P1 is a variable, let me just, so Pedro P1 is a variable that just belongs to the function. And self.PedroP1 is a global variable within the class. Okay, that's why we use the self here. That's the same reason why we use self inside as an argument of the function. If it's an argument of the function, I can call this method from outside. Okay, this is true for all methods we're going to define. All right, so here, what's happening? Let me just do the same for Pedro 2. Now, self.pedropp1 and self.pedropp2 are global variables within the class, and I can access them from the outside. So for example, here I am defining pedropp1 equals 2 and pedropp2 equals 3, and I can access them by doing pedroInstance dot and then the name of the variable, pedropp1, like this. So in this case, it will give me a 2, which is the number I chose. If I set it to 5, it will give me a 5. Okay? We can also modify from the outside. So for example, we can say pedropp1 now is 10, and let's print it again. Let me get rid of this line. So before it was 5, now it's a 10. So we can access from outside, modify from outside, do all kinds of interesting stuff. Also, this init function, this is a very special function. It also allows me to define these arguments, initialize these arguments in whatever order I want. So it's very useful because it doesn't require me to remember the order of these parameters, okay? It just requires me to remember what is the name of the variable. So if you give your variables intuitive names, you don't need to memorize their position in the argument definition, as you would need, for example, using lists in Python, okay? So it will work the same way, 5 and 10, despite of the different order. The downside is I always need to write the name of the variable equals 3, okay? Now let's define a method. Def Pedro method. And let's do something here. Let's return the value of pedropp1 squared. Okay. There's a problem here. Undefined name self. Yeah. So if you need your function inside a class to be accessible throughout the class, pass the global parameters within the class, which are the self parameters inside and outside, and also access your method from outside the class, you need this special word here. Okay. So now, how do I call this method? Okay, so in this case, for example, here, I am setting pedroInstance pedropp1 to 10, and now I want to use the method pedro method. So to do that, I just say pedroInstance dot pedro method, and that's it. It will give me the value of pedropp1 squared, which is 100 10 times 10. Okay. Now let's do something more interesting. Let's pass a parameter. No, let's do this. External variable, external var. Okay. And then instead of returning pedropp1 squared, let's return pedropp1 times the external variable. In this case, I need to specify the value of the external variable. So external variable equals 5. Okay. In this case, the result of this print should be 10 times the external variable, which I set to 5. So it should be 50. Exactly what prints here. Okay. If you want to make this external var a global variable within the class, you can do self dot external variable equals external variable, and you can use the global variable here. Okay, it's the same thing. Oh, so it's the same thing. Why should I do it? Well, because now you can do stuff in other methods. So when you pass the external variable here, you can also use the external variable here, self dot external variable, and do whatever you want in other methods within the class. Okay. We can pass parameters from other instances, so we can make different instances talk to each other. For example, let's set external variable of Pedro instance as a parameter from Pedro instance to another instance. How do we do it? We can do, for example, let's take whatever parameter from the instance 2 dot Pedro P1. So Pedro P1 from instance 2 I set to 2. Okay, so what should be the result? 10 times 2, which is 20. Let's run and see. 20. Okay, so with this we have all tools we need to build 80%, 90% of the codes we need. Okay. The last thing you need to know is the purpose is to organize, of course, your code. For example, the main file should be short, concise, and all your functions classes should be imported from another file. So it's easier to read the code, easier to develop. So other people will have an easy time understand what's going on and finding the bugs. And it's all organized instead of everything in the same file. You have to scroll up and down or divide your screen. It's not the best way. So to do it, we can, for example, let's create here a new file. Let's first save this one. Let's, for example, create a new file here, new folder. Classes. Sorry, classes. Save here. And then this other file I will save in the same place. Classes. I'll save here too. And I will name it my classes. Save. Okay, so they are in the same folder. This is important. If they are not in the same folder, it's a bit trickier to import, but it's not complicated. So now we can, for example, pass these classes here, define them like in another file. And here you can just import my, oh, it already recognizes, okay, my classes, and we can do, for example, as MC. So import my classes as MC, which is my classes, okay? So in this case, when we define the classes, the way I am importing my file, I have to use this MC identification before. So mc.pedro class. Now it works just the same. So 20 here, the same result as before, but now my classes are being defined in another file. So now I have an exercise for you. So the exercise here is, you want to build a game and your game has a zombie, okay? And it can have many zombies. It can have 1 zombie, 10 zombies, 100 zombies, okay? But let's start with just 1 zombie. So what we want is, first, we want to create a zombie, okay? 2, we want to initialize the total life of the zombie. So during the game, the zombie can lose life or gain life, okay? 3, initialize, for example, the strength of the zombie. Okay. 4, we want the zombie to lose health. Okay. So, and how much it loses depends on its strength. So define a method that calculates life lost depending on the zombie's strength and the damage received. Okay, and apply this life lost. So define it calculates and updates the life, updates current life from life lost depending on the zombie strength and damage received. So to do that, you can, for example, do something like when you call the method, for example, zombie.method, and you call it, you initialize the damage here. So let's say 10 damage. And then inside the method, you can update the life. For example, self life minus equal. This is you are reducing the life of the zombie, for example, by 10. But let's create, for example, a very simple model. So let's say a strong zombie mitigates the damage by doing, for example, minus its strength. Okay, so it ignores part of the damage received based on its strength. Okay, so try to come up with an idea. So what would be that class, that zombie class? So create the zombie as a class and create an instance in the main file, create an instance of it with the total life of the zombie and the strength of the zombie, and create a method that updates the current life of the zombie as a function of how much damage it receives and how much strength it has. Okay, so that's the exercise. So pause the video, do the exercise, and let's see the result. So I hope the exercise wasn't too difficult. So basically what you need is a class zombie, and then you initialize the strength, the initial life, pass it to global variables within the class, which are self variables, and then define a damage taken method. So you update the life of the zombie, and these names here don't need to be the same. Okay, however, it's recommended to use the same, but in this case, actually, it's best to use another word like life, because initial life, it's just the initial, and life means the current, so it makes more sense to use the word life. The damage taken function needs the damage, and it uses the strength as a mitigator. If we go to my main file, I am importing my classes as MC. I'm defining an instance of the zombie. I am printing the zombie life. I am dealing 50 damage to the zombie, and then I print the zombie life again. If I run this code, it will give me 100 as the initial life, so before the damage, and then 60 after the damage, because it takes damage, it reduces by 10, mitigates by 10, and then updates the zombie life. Of course, there's a problem here. If I deal very little damage, like 5, zombie life will increase, which doesn't make sense. So this would need a hotfix if it was a real game, but as a demonstration, that's it. I hope you learned something. I hope you could do the exercise. See you next time.